For some, it seems that the Holocaust is another lifetime, but for others, it will be something they will never forget. The Holocaust was a time for fighting. The Jewish would fight for the right to live as they were killed solely for being Jewish. The Holocaust began in 1939 and would continue through 1945. It was introduced by Nazi leader Adolf Hitler, although he did not act alone. His mission would be to exterminate all minorities, but most abundantly, the Jews. Based on information given by About.com, it is estimated that 11 million people were killed during the Holocaust. 6 million of these were Jews. Adolf Hitler came to power over Germany in January of 1933. He hated Jews and blamed them for everything bad that had ever happened to Germany. Hitler's goal in life was to eliminate the Jewish population. With his rise to power in Germany, he would put into action his plan of elimination. This is not only why German Jews were the main target of the Holocaust, but why they were a large part of the years before, during, and after the Holocaust. Hitler's final solution almost eliminated the Jewish population in Europe during World War II. At the end of the war, and along with his suicide, the Jewish population would survive the horror known as the Holocaust, and the Jews would eventually find their way back to their homeland of Israel, as well as find new communities to call home. Many people look back on the Holocaust today and realize that so many hideous things happened. The genocide of the Jews is known, but what may be less well documented is Hitler's design to exterminate all groups other than the blue-eyed, fair-eyed Aryans. So many of them were forgotten and just pushed in with the major race of the Jews, who were said to be unworthy of life. The people were not ready, nor expecting to be forced into such a hideous state of being. Adolf Hitler excruciatingly persecuted every race that he thought was unsuitable of his dreams of a master race. The Holocaust continues to exist as a black mark in the history of Germany. Though the government supported the torture and extermination of both men and women, and like I said earlier, more than 6 million lost their lives, as a consequence of the collective tragedy of both sexes, there has been much debate pertaining to the focused gender-specific suffering in the Holocaust literature. For this reason, the Holocaust accounts of women writers were largely ignored prior to the 1970s. Many historians still refute disparities existed between the male and the female experience. However, it is worth noting that the social and cultural expectations of men and women, both prior to and during the war, varied greatly. These diverging roles promoted distinctively different coping, processing, and accounting of the tragedies stemming from the Holocaust. By examining the unique experience of women, both within and outside the concentration camps, one can logically conclude these remarkable accounts broaden the scope of the Holocaust literature. During the Holocaust, concentration camp prisoners received tattoos only at one location, the Auschwitz concentration camp complex, which consisted of Auschwitz I, Auschwitz II, and Auschwitz III. Incoming prisoners were assigned a camp serial number, which was sewn to their prison uniforms. Only those prisoners selected for work were issued serial numbers. Those prisoners sent directly to the gas chambers were not registered and received no tattoos. This reasoning being because when you were sent to the gas chambers, there was no reason for the numbers because the gas chambers were a death sentence. Which I'm sure that you all already know, the people in the concentration camps were treated nothing less than horrible. Some things the Germans did were the Night of Broken Glass. On November 10, 1938, the Germans were ordered to massacre every Jew or enforce labor onto them. Following the mandate, this very night they decided to hit the heart of the Jews, the synagogues. They sent on to burn every shop owned by the Jews after looting their valuables. Many were physically harmed in this process. The murder trains. The Nazis transported millions across Europe to various concentration camps. This was an impressive feature, but the manner in which they were transported that was inhumane. The Jews were stuffed into a railway cart like cattle. In a car that would normally hold 50, at least 200 Jews were stuffed and squeezed in. A lot of the Jews perished during this journey, even before the reaching of the camp, as they were not given food or even a drop of water. There was an instance where a train from Corfu arrived after a long journey. When the guards at the camp opened the carriages, they found everyone inside to be dead. The Jews began being transported starved to death during the journey, which took more than 2 weeks. To add insult to injury, the Germans charged the Jews for the transportation. Everyone was forced to pay up except the children under the age of 4. Human soap. The smell of death filled the air at the concentration camps. They were even denied to use the clean soap. The fat which the soap was made was extracted from the dead. The Germans obviously did not use it, as using soap made from the carcass of the Jews were considered below their dignity, but the Jews themselves were forced to use it. Music. Like we mentioned before, the Nazis looked at killing as a game. For them, the more sadistic the game got, the better it was. They proved their sadistic nature with how they welcomed the Jews to camps. The inmates at the camp, who were musicians, were forced to form orchestras which played classical ballads as the Jews arrived. The Nazis conducted execution of the Jews as the music played, but the screams of the fallen overpowered the tunes of the musical symphonies. Those who survived still have nightmares of the music and what the Nazis related this to. Dark cells and torture. The Jews were unable to work, were thrown in what they called dark cells. There was no inlet of light or air in the cells, which meant that anyone thrown in there would die of suffocation very slowly. Apart from devilish treatment, they were also starved and forced to stand as torture for days together. Disobedience was met with a bullet in the head for some Jews. Lack of food and water. Although the Jews at the camps knew they were destined to die, the Nazis sometimes did not make death easy, even though it was the end goal of their mindless mission. Jews were locked in chambers and left to starve to death. Out of desperation, they scrambled through the garbage in hopes to find something to eat, or scoured through their dead to find some means of nutrition. Dr. Hans forced the inmates to drink seawater. He wanted to study the effect of seawater on the human body, and in the process that inmates were left severely dehydrated. They resorted to licking the floor, and they used a swab in order to get some fresh water in their system. Experiments. The Nazis reached the summit of their nefarious ways with their experiments. In their search for the perfect human, they used the Jews as lab rats in the camps. They conducted studies on twins, dwarves, transgenders, women, and children. Every question they needed a biological answer was explored by performing experiments on the inmates. From stitching twins together to injecting viruses in the body to study their effect, to even dissecting them while still alive. The inhumane nature of the Nazis stood in prominence with the to conclude, as everyone has now known, family and friends died in this time. Had to go through their life remembering these times vividly until the day they do pass. This was a time of death and mourning that I could never imagine.
Like 20 minutes.
How long is it?
8 minutes.